Real-time strategy games are having a moment, or at least pretending to have one. This episode weighs heavy on RTS news because three significant developments dropped within days of each other. We have a Command & Conquer spiritual successor finally getting a release after 5 years of development hell, accessibility innovations that could reshape how strategy games work, and Microsoft proving that sometimes the best new content comes from games that are old enough to vote. Plus headlines covering cozy city builders, modern grand strategy, and a board game adaptation that promises to solve Twilight Imperium's biggest problem. Ignacio Trellis spent 5 years building the Command & Conquer successor nobody asked for, but everybody seems to want. His studio Sarnea just announced that Dying Breed will launch on October the 7th through MicroProse, capping a development cycle that reads like an indie horror story with a happy ending. Trellis grew up in Uruguay playing Tiberian Dawn, Red Alert and Total Annihilation straight from original boxes, when getting legitimate PC games there meant serious effort. That isometric perspective became his design compass. In 2018 he decided to make games professionally. By 2019 he had a plan. Remake something classic the way Hollywood remakes movies. 3 options made his shortlist: Grand Theft Auto 2, Heroes of Might and Magic 3 and Command & Conquer. His instinct said avoid C&C because it would be hardest. His investor disagreed. If others could do it, why not them? The development process that followed demonstrates why most indie games fail. The first programming team produced nothing after 3 months. The first artist left due to personal issues. The second team showed promise until bigger companies poached the talent. Publishers expressed interest and then disappeared without explanation. Trellis eventually staged what he calls a coup d'etat in his own company to regain decision-making control. Progress came through unconventional channels. Trellis sent a demo to YouTuber Splattercat who uploaded coverage immediately. That video generated the game's first real fanbase and caught MicroProse's attention. The same publisher that brought Trellis Civilization and Roller Coaster Tycoon as a kid now wanted to publish his game. Development accelerated from there with expanded teams, live-action FMV cutscenes, and separate musical scores for each faction. Dying Breed targets the specific audience that misses Westwood's approach to strategy gaming: base building, resource management, land, sea, air, subterranean combat theatres, dramatic single-player campaigns with live actors delivering exposition between missions. This represents a rejection of the multiplayer-focused direction most modern RTS games have taken. Success depends entirely on how many players still want that experience, but Trellis built exactly what he set out to create. The October 7th release caps a development story driven by pure stubborn persistence. Most studios would have quit after losing their second team or the third publisher. Trellis kept building through broken Unity versions, cut mission counts, and constant setbacks. The final product may succeed or fail commercially, but it exists because one developer refused to compromise on his vision of what strategy games should be. Strategy games demand constant multitasking, managing production queues while coordinating attacks. Upgrading economies while scouting threats creates cognitive overhead that drives many players away from the genre entirely. In Fractured Alliance, developer Tense Games looked at this accessibility barrier and designed a faction specifically to eliminate it through automation rather than simplification. The collective operates through drone systems that handle tactical execution automatically. Players make strategic decisions about expansion, construction and objectives, while AI manages resource gathering, unit production, army composition and threat response. Instead of controlling individual units, players toggle drone behaviour between attack, defend, stockpile and automatic modes. Repair stations maintain structures without manual intervention. The cognitive load shifts from multitasking to planning. This design philosophy draws from Warhammer 40k's Tau faction and indirect control games like Majesty. Players guide automated systems towards strategic objectives rather than managing tactical details directly. The challenge becomes manipulating forces that operate independently rather than micromanaging units that follow orders precisely. Different strategic puzzles emerge from this approach compared to traditional RTS mechanics. Tense Games promises that their other 2 factions, the United Federation and the Eastern Alliance, will satisfy players who want full control. The collective gets its own complete campaign, ensuring newcomers receive the same narrative depth as veteran players. For experienced strategists, playing as the collective offers a different challenge entirely, achieving objectives through direct influence rather than direct command. Success depends entirely on execution, but the concept addresses genuine accessibility problems in strategy gaming. The genre has struggled to expand beyond its core audience, partly because learning curves are so steep. Traditional solutions involve removing complexity, which often removes strategic depth simultaneously. The collective attempts to maintain depth while reducing execution demands through automation rather than elimination. This approach could influence how other developers think about accessibility in complex genres. Instead of dumbing down mechanics, automate the busy work while preserving strategic decision making. The principle extends beyond gaming. Any complex system becomes more accessible when automation handles routine tasks while preserving meaningful choices for the user. Fractured Alliance lacks a release date but accepts Steam wishlists for development tracking. The success or failure of the collective design philosophy will determine whether other strategy games adopt similar accessibility approaches. Microsoft announced another expansion for Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition. The Alexander the Great campaign launches October the 14th with 3 new civilizations, the Macedonians, the Thracians and Peru, covering Alexander's conquest of Macedonia to India. The news becomes significant when you consider the game originally released in 1999 and continues receiving substantial content updates 25 years later. Most games from 1999 exist as historical curiosities or nostalgic memories. Age of Empires 2 maintains active competitive scenes, attracts new players on modern platforms including the recent PS5 release, and generates enough revenue to justify continued development. The Alexander expansion follows the established Chronicles format with historical campaigns, period-appropriate civilizations, and units based on archaeological research. The game's sustained success demonstrates principles most developers ignore: solid foundational mechanics that don't require constant reinvention. Resource management, military production, technological advancement, and tactical combat create engaging gameplay loops regardless of graphics, technology, or industry trends. The Definitive Edition modernized interface and balance without changing core systems that already worked. This approach contrasts sharply with other strategy franchises that either disappeared completely or reinvented themselves beyond recognition while chasing market trends. Command & Conquer attempted hero units, card-based progression, and mobile monetization before EA shut down the franchise. Total War expanded into fantasy settings and campaign mechanics that barely resemble the original formula. Age of Empires 2 simply kept being what it always was, a solid strategic experience with clear mechanics and historical flavour. The continued investment in Age of Empires 2 content suggests Microsoft recognises sustainable game development principles that many publishers overlook. Instead of launching new titles with uncertain market reception, maintain and expand proven products that already have dedicated audiences. Revenue from a stable player base often exceeds launch sales from untested concepts. This model works because the underlying game design remains sound. Strategic depth, historical context, and mechanical clarity created lasting appeal that transcends technological limitations. Modern graphics and quality of life improvements enhance the experience without replacing it entirely. The Alexander campaign represents Microsoft's commitment to sustained development over constant innovation. Other strategy developers could learn from this approach, but most will probably continue chasing the next revolutionary concept while ignoring the proven formulas already sitting in their catalogues collecting dust. UK developer Quali and developer Galaxy Grove have launched Town to City into early access, positioning it as a cosy city builder that lets players manually place every building, road and garden. The team behind Station to Station built this one around complete player control rather than automated systems. Early access includes 2 campaign maps and 5 sandbox maps spanning 8 cities and 6 monuments. The 19th century setting provides the aesthetic framework while population happiness and economic systems drive the mechanical progression. Players shape towns through direct placement decisions rather than zoning tools, with amenities affecting growth patterns organically. Community feedback during beta testing influenced the final early access build, and Galaxy Grove plans continued development based on player response. Polish studio Play of Battle revealed Systemic War, combining real-time tactical combat with macroeconomic management and diplomatic systems. The October Steam Next Fest demo will showcase more than 150 unit types across 25 real-world conflict zone maps, including US airborne brigades, Turkish mechanized troops, and electronic warfare units. The grand strategy layer handles trade, inflation, infrastructure, and technology licensing between nations. Research paths affect logistics, production, and combat performance, while diplomatic tools include media manipulation and psychological tactics. Players can choose economic specialization, export power, heavy industry, or technological leadership, which each path created systemic consequences across military and political systems. The full release targets 2026 with scenarios covering modern history and alternate timelines. Red Square Games announced a digital adaptation of the legendary board game Twilight Imperium, streamlining the galaxy-spanning Forex experience for PC while retaining the political complexity that made the original famous. The adaptation features over a dozen unique factions with distinct abilities, automated systems to reduce the tabletop version's notorious playtime, and AI opponents designed to replicate the human political manoeuvring that defines the game. Multiplayer support includes tools for managing epic sessions across time zones, addressing one of the biggest barriers to playing the physical version. The digital translation promises cinematic visuals and faction-specific music while preserving the diplomatic intrigue, warfare, and empire building that made Twilight Imperium a 4x benchmark. No release date yet, but the Steam page accepts wishlists. Strategy games live and die by their systems, but this week reminded us that execution and persistence matter more than revolutionary concepts. Dying Breed exists because one developer refused to quit despite losing teams and publishers. The collective faction could work because Tense Games identified a real accessibility problem and designed around it rather than ignoring it. And Age of Empires 2 keeps getting expansions because Microsoft recognised that solid foundations don't need constant replacement. Speaking of systems and execution, Friday's Critical Moves podcast episode examines asymmetry in strategy games, how different factions, mechanics and victory conditions create balanced competition from unequal starting positions. You don't want to miss that one, so subscribe to the channel to be notified when it's released. Thanks very much for watching, take it easy, goodbye.